Hello. All right, so welcome to our last talk for the 2024 Japan Writers Conference. Good noon to all of you, and thank you all for coming. This is lunchtime already, but I hope you can still power through. I appreciate you coming here. I am actually also interested to listen to the other parallel talks, but unfortunately, I have to do this job. So, but thank you for choosing this topic. Today, I'm gonna talk about rivers, and I hope you all agree with me that all rivers lead to the sea. But rivers naturally meander. No river can naturally form a straight path. My presentation focuses on the river as method, both as a subject in my nonfiction project and as a form which celebrates meandering, not to be looked at as digression, but a crucial structure which eventually reveals its necessity upon the reader's and the essay's ultimate arrival. I make use of the importance of extended associations, synaptic thinking, and neuroplasticity with the hope of bringing out the sense of play and the sense in the play in nonfiction writing. I'm a nonfiction and film professor at the University of the Philippines. I'm also a developmental editor, which means I receive a lot of book projects that are yet to be developed. And my work is to get the book out, right? So it's part of the work that I had. And also was able to direct a university press. So all the cycle of publishing, I had to work on that. And that informs my teaching in the classroom. But the concept that I'll be teaching today may not be very popular in terms of wanting to be a bestseller, because this is the kind of technique that chooses a particular set of audience. In my hometown called Cagayan de Oro, how many of you have been to the Philippines? Wow, great. In Mindanao, okay, in southern Philippines, okay, so that's where I come from. In my city is a giant golden fish trapped under the bed of the Cagayan River. According to Spanish friars and linguists, Cagayan is derived from Carayan, a Proto-Austronesian word meaning river. Since Cagayan de Oro is a riverine town, and as is common to civilizations, people settle near bodies of water. When the river was still narrow and shallow, the golden fish strayed to the river and never got out. After many years, the river became wider and deeper, and the fish also grew with it, trapping itself for good. It was the first thing I investigated when Mom brought us to San Agustin Cathedral near Carmen, situated right beside the Cagayan River. So, go to church, but my church was the river, right? So, because my uncle said that was where the head of the fish was stuck. Its tail is in Macabalan, at the mouth of the river where the seaport is. So, you can just imagine how long it is, right? Oro, as the folks baptize the fish, has scales made of gold, and on its head is a batubalani. It's a gold magnet, right? Attracting heaps of more gold. There used to be a rumor about priests disappearing in the cathedral, siphoned through a secret water hole at the back of the church. Mom would use the story to warn me not to go somewhere else except the Gaston Park outside the church, which was our favorite playground in the 90s. The secret waterhole would appear as motif in another version of the tale told by my teacher in grade school. The story is about a criminal sentenced to death this was long before the Spaniards came. This is like 1500s. The criminal had gills in his ears, like Kevin Costner in Waterworld, okay? He could breathe through the aqua labyrinth. Perplexed by the mystery of the water hole, the datu, or the chief of the village, would grant the criminal his life only if he'd explore beyond that hole and come out alive. They waited and waited, but the criminal did not come out of the hole. Instead, he surfaced near the river's opening to the sea. He told the people what he saw, a giant golden fish, right? So that's the lore that many of my generation and the generation before me grew up with. On December 17, 2011, the same year the explosion happened here in Fukushima, a few days before Christmas, the Cagayan River swept away thousands of lives, homes, properties in the middle of the night. Brown must have been how we looked from the sky for weeks, floating in a sea of brown where logs coming down from the mountains. The city was not prepared for such an epic flood. So there came blaming that the water's fury was unstoppable, that there were dredging facilities bought 12 years ago but were never used, that it was wrong in the first place for the local government to award parcels of land to the poor and locate them along the riverbanks, which the river would reclaim because it is its natural course, right? That a water magnate ordered the release of water from his dam on the night of the storm, that there was no weather advisory, that the mayor, as rumor had it, was playing mahjong on the night the tragedy happened. The same mayor who was awarded Doctor of Humanities by a university in the city a while after the Hulugat Caves vicinity, former settlement of ancient Cagayanons, was destroyed to build a bridge. That there were illegal logging in the mountain, small-scale mining. Michel de Montaigne was the first to use the word essay for the casual, meandering, first-person explorations that allow readers to delight in one's way of thinking through. Rebecca Solnit proposes a kind of depth achieved by moving slow, seeing close-up, lingering, living in detail, not trying to get somewhere else, but to know where we are, map the surrounding territory, and understand where we are. A recognition that everything exists in context, that the subject may be the system rather than the individual, the network of ideas and meanings that reach out like, difficult word, mycorrhizal fungi to connect things and circulate their nutrients. I learned from labyrinths that to get to the center, you turn away from it again and again as you follow the windings that will, in the end, take you to the center. How do rivers form meanders? Do we have geologists in the room? Or people writing about land formations? Okay, good. So I think this video will be the expert for us, right? Okay, and nobody can help me in the Q&A later. Okay? All right. Let's see if the audio is loud enough. Turn this on.
Compared to the whitewater streams that tumble down mountainsides, the meandering rivers of the plains may seem tame and lazy, but mountain streams are corralled by the steep walled valleys they carve. Their courses are literally set in stone. Out on the open plains, those stony walls give way to soft soil, allowing rivers to shift their banks and set their own ever-changing courses to the sea, courses that almost never run straight. At least not for long, because all it takes to turn a straight stretch of river into a bendy one is a little disturbance and a lot of time. And in nature, there's plenty of both. Say, for example, that a muskrat burrows herself a den in one bank of a stream. Her tunnels make for a cozy home, but they also weaken the bank, which eventually begins to crumble and slump into the stream. Water rushes into the newly formed hollow, sweeping away loose dirt and making the hollow even hollower, which lets the water rush a little faster and sweep away a little more dirt, and so on and so on. As more of the stream's flow is diverted into the deepening hole on one bank and away from the other side of the channel, the flow there weakens and slows. And since slow-moving water can't carry the sand-sized particles that fast-moving water can, the dirt drops to the bottom and builds up to make the water there even shallower and slower, and then keeps accumulating until it becomes new land on the inside bank. Meanwhile, the fast-moving water near the outside bank sweeps out of the curve with enough momentum to carry it across the channel and slam it into the other side, where it starts to carve another curve, and then another, and then another, and then another. The wider the stream, the longer it takes the slingshotting current to reach the other side, and the greater the downstream distance to the next curve. In fact, measurements of meandering streams all over the world reveal a strikingly regular pattern. The length of one S-shaped meander tends to be about 6 times the width of the channel. So little tiny meandering streams tend to look just like miniature versions of their bigger relatives. As long as nothing gets in the way of a river's meandering, its curves will continue to grow curvier and curvier until they loop around and bumble into themselves. When that happens, the river's channel follows the straighter path downhill, leaving behind a crescent-shaped remnant called an oxbow lake.
Or a billabong.
O un lago en herradura.
Ou un bras mort.
We have lots of names for these lakes, since they can occur pretty much anywhere liquid flows, or used to. Which brings up an interesting question. What do the Martians call them?
Well, let's go to Mars to answer that, okay? My fascination with rivers, or the patterns they make, led me to other forms that look like the fractals they create. Apparently, there are many people who are already going through the same fascination. So rivers, blood vessels, tree roots, tree branches, neurons in the brain. And I stumbled on a math teacher whose name is Eddie Wu.
It gradually dawned on me that mathematics is a sense. Mathematics is a sense just like sight and touch. It's a sense that allows us to perceive realities which would be otherwise intangible to us. You know, we talk about a sense of humor, a sense of rhythm. Mathematics is our sense for patterns, relationships, and logical connections. It's a whole new way to see the world. Now, I want to show you a mathematical reality that I guarantee you've seen before, but perhaps never really perceived. It's been hidden in plain sight your entire life. This is a river delta. It's a beautiful piece of geometry. Now, when we hear the word geometry, most of us think of triangles and circles. But geometry is the mathematics of all shapes. And this meeting of land and sea has created shapes with an undeniable pattern. It has a mathematically recursive structure. Every part of the river delta, with its twists and turns, is a micro version of the greater whole. So I want you to see the mathematics in this. But that's not all. I want you to compare this river delta with this amazing tree. It's a wonder in itself, but focus with me on the similarities between this and the river. What I want to know is why on earth should these shapes look so remarkably alike? Why should they have anything in common? Things get even more perplexing when you realize it's not just water systems and plants that do this. If you keep your eyes open, you'll see these same shapes are everywhere. Lightning bolts disappear so quickly that we seldom have the opportunity to ponder their geometry. But their shape is so unmistakable and so similar to what we've just seen that one can't help but be suspicious. And then there's the fact that every single person in this room is filled with these shapes too. Every cubic centimeter of your body is packed with blood vessels that trace out this same pattern. There's a mathematical reality woven into the fabric of the universe that you share with winding rivers, towering trees, and raging storms. These shapes are examples of what we call fractals as mathematicians. Fractals get their name from the same place as fractions and fractures. It's a reference to the broken and shattered shapes we find around us in nature. Now, once you have a sense for fractals, you really do start to see them everywhere. A head of broccoli, the leaves of a fern, even clouds in the sky. Like the other senses, our mathematical sense can be refined with practice. It's just like developing perfect pitch or a taste for wines. You can learn to perceive the mathematics around you with time and the right guidance.
There is a mathematical reality woven into the fabric of the universe that you share with winding rivers, towering trees, and raging storms. I find this statement not only beautiful, but also affirming, since as a writer, my thinking and writing are almost always non-linear. Perhaps I shouldn't say this too much or I lose my job in the university, right? I am 24 and backpacking Southeast Asia in 2012. A good friend in Cambodia introduces to me a river that used to be a man-made water channel. How many of you have been to the Angkor Wat? I'm the expert now. So, the name of the river is the Siem Reap River. The water that flows to it is diverted water that begins at the sacred Mount Kulin. It cuts across the city, slightly diverts at the Angkor Wat, which is its contemporary, so they were built at the same time. And the water channel was necessary for irrigation, to provide water. And finally, it ends up at a lower elevation in the mighty Tonle Sap Lake. The Tonle Sap Lake is like a giant reservoir, so that because of too much water during rainy days, it serves as a basin to contain the water, so that when it's sunny, they divert that water again, flowing into the rice fields, and that sustained the civilization. The Khmer Empire was such a great empire in Southeast Asia before. Because most of the river's body is a straight line, the water flows faster and stronger, which causes 10 times the usual erosion of rivers and destroys ecosystems along its banks. It became a river after centuries when it started developing meanders. What appears to be a small portion of a river before me enlarges in my imagination into a rhizome of water networks that connect a mountain and a lake reservoir based on my friend's account. He goes on explaining that apart from the environmental havoc that the Siem Reap River had caused, it also witnessed more than 100,000 deaths in the 60s and 70s when the American soldiers rained bombs on its banks in their pursuit to destroy the Viet Congs, which is like the neighboring country of Cambodia. The wars also left countless landmines that crippled and killed many Cambodians, and many are still being detonated until today. But the story of the river is not all sad, according to him. When the Angkor Wat was built more than 9 centuries ago, the river was used to float rafts that carried tons and tons of sandstones carved out of the mountain 30 miles away. It is part of the glorious architectural heritage of the Khmer Empire and their genius in hydraulics, which was crucial in feeding the population of the megacity during the height of the Khmer Empire. Tim Bascom offers a visualization of the creative process. I like it. It's so faithful to my creative process, right? Probably what many of us can resonate with. I find Tim's and Claire's visualization useful in my nonfiction classes because they show my students the importance of play and the value of thinking concretely to achieve complexity of thought. It requires patience. You know, sometimes people are so intimidated by the way their brains are wired, and they feel anxious right away, right? It will restructure itself, you know, journey with it. Inverted check mark, avoid the plateau, right? Not the bullseye, not right away, okay, because you have to hit the bullseye, but whirl around it and then arrive. We may also string episodes, specific details, or events that are carefully chosen or framed. Okay? Choose the frame, right? Motif, pattern, the invisible stitch. Or operate 2 layers. One probably is the narrative, and the deeper layer is the philosophy or the philosophical spine. Dipping once in a while to a deeper well. Or go back to where you started, but with a new perspective or opening, or a gesture at the end that welcomes insight. The reader arrives at the same place, but the reader has changed. 2 essays, braided like the helix, or the lyric essay, that moves with poetic energy, no matter its jumps and leaps, trusting the power of metaphor to infect the reader. The first compilation of creative nonfiction edited by Lee Gutkin from the journal of the same name includes essays that meander, and I quote, from subject to subject, idea to idea, seemingly without connection, twisting and turning, and then somehow, thanks to the writer's skill, converging to make a point. And this is a recommended reading, class. Okay? Take note. Likewise, Jane Allison in Meander, Spiral, Explode, explains that the art of delaying the arrival to its end is pleasurable in itself. And I quote, the pleasures in the journey it might hold back by strewing conflicts, boulders along the way, as an adventure story might. Bored by classic conflict, it instead lingers by flowing along an extravagant arabesque of detours, begins at one point and moves toward a final one, but with digressive loops. There's deliberate slowness, a delight in curving this way or that, luxuriating in diversions, carving slow labyrinths of time. And this one I quote in toto. Spiral. Think of a fiddlehead fern, whirlpool, hurricane, horns twisting from a ram's head, or a chambered nautilus. Meander. Picture a river curving and kinking, a snake in motion, a snail's silver trail, or the path left by a goat grazing the tenderest greens. Radial or explosion, a splash of dripping water, petals growing from a daisy's heart, light radiating from the sun, the ring left around a tick bite. Branching and other fractal patterns, self-replication at lesser scale made by trees, coastlines, clouds. Cellular patterns, repeating shapes you see in a honeycomb, foam of bubbles, cracked lake bed, or light ripping in a pool. These can look like cells, or inversely, like a net. These patterns aren't just around us, they inform our bodies too. Dave Madden emphasizes the importance of inducing the experience of thought, meaning to say, reading an essay is an experience in itself, right? To maximize the absorption, meaning to say, you design a desirable difficulty for the reader to make the reader challenging and rewarding. It's not enough to show your mind at work. You know, you love writers whose minds are out there. You know? It's a universe that you can. I love those works. You know? We essayists need to get our readers' minds working on their own. And so there's a term that he calls semantic coding, which involves a constant querying of language. Not too much, okay? Everything is with moderation and regulation here. Now, what we mean is to allow the words to refresh the world, as if it's just born today, you know? Old stories, all the stories have been written. You've heard everything. An old story in a new language is a new story. A new story in an old language, old story. According to David Madden, and this really worked, no? When I tried to look into the process when I was doing my doctorate degree. Okay, those who took their PhD, you know what I mean. You know what happens to your brain when you inject difficult concepts to the brain. You force the brain to expand, right? Because it's a muscle. Okay, the dendrites tend to appear brighter. That's why it's called bright, right? You see, like, light bulb moments. But this is what happens to the brain when you feed it increasingly more difficult content. 2024. I am 37 and have been teaching college students for 16 years. Year after year, I worry about my students' shorter attention span, a decreasing capacity to process dense text. The long form is in crisis, so whoever is writing long form here, you have a rock in front of you, both in reading and in writing. Students rely on AI to synthesize ideas or churn out papers, when the point is to train the mind to be patient with the chaos, to search slowly, carefully, to be level-headed when met with failure in thinking or feeling, and try again. How do we decide about complex issues now and in the future? To hold questions that do not have answers. To feel complex feelings, think complex thoughts that stretch the limits of language. The year is 2016, and I finally get the chance to see the Oregon coast. It's the longest and the most beautiful coastline I've ever seen in a single vista. This coast is one of the reasons why, upon receiving my offer letter from the University of Oregon, I decided to come to UO for my PhD, because when I Googled the coolest places to check out in Oregon, I immediately was drawn to the coastline that faces the Pacific. 11,000 miles across is the tiny city called Cagayan de Oro, in the southern part of the Philippines where I come from. I walk the coastline and I see a stream, a tiny stream, flowing into the sea. I touch it, and then I send message with it, because I miss my family and friends, knowing that all waters in the world are one. I read a poem sent to me as a gift from a dear friend from Cagayan de Oro. And the title of the poem is The River Speaks by Arlene Yandug. My name is Impupulangi. My people, hunters and punters all, call me Suba, Agos, Danao. Such names speak for my birthright. I gather memories of the earth and flow on intractable, sliding around stones from shadow to shadow among the trees. No, I am the wind's path. Drifters find their way through me, their boats and rafts loaded full with broken bits of sea and forest, corals, pearls, traded with porcelains from China, gold swapped with iron tools from the Malay Peninsula, honey and beeswax with beads and goods from Venice and India. All rivers outlast the dreamers on the banks. The waters carrying their dreams thousands of years away, turning, twisting, purling inside cavities, rising, rushing. Branching on forest floors, the centuries keep tarrying, caught up for a moment on tender-throated lilies. The longest way, they say, is the only way to the sea. Where does a river begin? What is a silk web's beginning? Can you gather all the silk from the bottom belly of a spider? Take me a mantic, enchantress then, rambling, riddling to the primates, the plovers, meandering to you. No matter how many times you reverse your padded doublet, friend, you will be helplessly lost here. You're a bird behind a field of chameleons, behind in this country. On your map, I'm just a tangle of lines. Think of your matted beard. Think brown race. It's convoluted genealogy, but no, I'm as real as the spurt you just scooped from a crack of rock. The water glitters on your palm, your huge nose detecting a chill of a faraway winter. Look on my surface, I'm holding you and the clouds behind you captive. But you'll acknowledge only the dark pools of your haunted eyes, the fungi chewing your elbows as you gather my body rippling under your touch. Your face will warp like a conch shell as sounds of water converge inside you into fierce cataracts. Here, you can never be equal to your yearning. I slip forever through the fingers of your love. Pass your sword through my neck, I'll be whole again and again. Water on a sieve forever in a state of holing, unhurting. When I spill into Kabakan, I am called Kabakan River. When I flow into Agusan, I become Agusan. And now as I bleed immensely away from you, you call me Rio, Rio Grande of Mindanao. But I am Buluan, I am Allah, I am Libungan, I am Pulangi, I am the blues of abalone, the shimmer of gold dust, the fluids of onions, the veins of pith, wrapping the citrus earth. Tonight, I'll be beautiful. My sprays will froth brightly under the moon. The bald moon swims, the stars gold, lilies white, the bones below whiter. When you see me, remember the sparkling sails in the blue Pacific of your memory, when the world was an endless stretch of seas. Tonight, my rapids will break into shards, sharp as the songs of crickets. Under the southern skies, I will freely open up a path of quicksilver forever ahead of you in the coming dawn. Thank you very much. Questions? Yeah.
Okay, personal opinion, I think this is one of the most important, impactful talks that I've been.
Thank you.
Now, I have a question that, what you just read, for example, and many little pieces from you, you wrote it?
The
Or is it a
poem,
collection?
the poem is for my friend, but the essays on rivers are from the book that's coming out next year.
Okay, I see.
So I culled from them and made a piece for you today.
Wow.
What's going on now in Palestine, thing from the river to the sea, you must know about this sentence.
Yes.
And both of them are contested.
Yes. Even the neural networks, the way we think, right? The connections that we establish.
So what stage is the book at right now?
I'm done with the manuscript. We're designing the cover and then do final editing. Yes.
I guess, like, just wanted to ask about river as a method. Like, it sounds like you're using it for more like similar style autobiographical, like type of nonfiction. But how do you feel it like applies to like other types of nonfiction? And even I can see this working for fiction too.
Yes.
But like, I guess like fiction has always been like a very structured like, or like at least Western writing styles is a very structured like thing. Do you have like maybe any examples that you can think of that you could maybe recommend?
I would say that this particular method that I am developing comes from my love for poetry.
Yeah,
Because poetry is my first love. So,
yeah.
because poetry works with synesthesia, you know? Things that are seemingly unconnected but requires a certain gifting of time to understand. In the novel, for example, you see a lot of manipulations of time and space, right? And that can also work, right? In drama, for example, because I used to write for the stage for a long time, I was a theater actor. In the full-length play, for example, even if the full length is like chronological, there can be leaps and jumps in between, you know? And this is synaptic thinking, basically. Sometimes we're too careful with the structure that we're so afraid that we lose our reader along the way. And I feel like it's not helping. In the writing classroom, I tell my students, you have to find the joy in the writing process first. Serve yourself. Write the work that you want to read, that you love to read. Write the work that you approve. Maybe not right away, because there is such a thing as real labor, right? So what I want to say is that this form is not exclusive to nonfiction. It can be, it's so freeing. It's so freeing in a sense. Try it, play with it. One time, I let my students walk out and do a photo walk, just any photo that they can take, and then take the best 10 photos. And then I let them write captions that do not connect with the photos, but just make it poetic or sound poetic. And you know the result? The ekphrasis is a different kind, right? Because there's a contradiction between image and text. And that creates an effect because the brain of the reader is always seeking to make sense. And we have to trust our reader that, and trust our material to do that for them. So when you do things from love, I think that will show. So that life is not dictated by market only. It is dictated by life, dictated by the breathing of the body, to allow the reader to experience your own pacing. You know? We live such fast lives. We need diversity in experience with time. It's a winding answer, true to my lecture. Yes.
With the other talk, I sort of know how I would like to or not like to connect with this speaker. With your talk, I don't know how to connect. I would like to, right? See, you came from the Philippines,
Yeah.
from the university. You gave this magnificent talk about your book. It's about to come out. I'm gonna go, and I'm like, I want to connect with this guy.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how can we do that?
Okay. So
Or are you looking for more connections? So maybe you're not. Maybe you just came and shared this.
I came and you know, just share what I'm thinking right now. But I can ask for a mail list from the Japan Writers organizers, and maybe when the book is out, I'll invite you. I'll let you know. Yes.
What's your book title?
The Churning of the Sea of Milk, and other essay. The churning of the Sea of Milk. It's based on the symbology of the Angkor Wat.
Be published by the
UP Press.
Yes.
I think how to connect with you.
You can search me. My profile is in ResearchGate, but that's the scholar part of me. You will see like geeky stuff there, but my email is there, Elio Garcia.
You mean we don't just like go into the forest and like eat an apple under a tree and think about frogs?
And then you'll
And
be
then
there.
you'll appear.
Yeah. So thank you all. If there are no more questions or comments, I appreciate your time and for the gift of your presence today. See you.